Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the OCNJ Local, your podcast for everything happening here in America's greatest family resort. We're your hosts, Dominic Dougherty and Drew Fasy.
And we are your local guys.
Drew, I got to update that intro, man. We're all pale in that and stuff. Now we're all tan. Well, I'm tan at least. You somehow managed to stay pale, Drew. How?
I got the best Irish tan I've ever had. This is deep and dark for me, buddy.
Man, no, I used to have a friend who was Dominican, and by midsummer I would be darker than him. So I'm still not there yet, but we're getting close. So, but anyway, more important things to talk about today. We got a very special guest with us here today, City Council President, Mr. Terry Crowley. Terry, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's always an honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you guys.
Drew, did you miss the memo, Drew? Come on, man. Get your surface supply gears on. Let's go.
I'm not getting any gifts.
No. That's a shame, Drew. I'll get you one next time I go.
Well, there you go.
You need one or two for sure. We'll get you a visor. That's Drew's signature.
A visor, a T-shirt, a slice of Alex's pizza, and some Kilwin's ice cream.
I just I got something else to tease too.
Tom gets all the perks, Terry.
Hey, listen, I just stayed at one of the new boutique hotels in town, the Ocean City Mansion last night. So more to that, more to come on that. I did, yeah. That was another perk right there. So
nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They did a great job. Not to tease too much. Apparently, that house was owned by the Lake family at one point. So it was one of like the original homes in Ocean City. They did a really nice job with it. So
really.
But I mentioned that because I'm the Segway King. We are here to talk with Mr. Crowley about the recent vote taken by City Council last week. It feels like an eternity ago, maybe just because this has all been going on for what feels like an eternity, of 5-2 to move the Wonderland property, to designate the Wonderland property as an area in need of rehabilitation. So
it's been about 20 months, right?
That's
Wonderland
it.
Closed its doors for the last time in October of 2024. So here we are 20 months later.
Wow. So, a lot of the talk around this process was rushed, or, a lot of things were overlooked. Terry, can you kind of speak to the process, lift the veil a little bit as what City Council went through, for the past 20 months to come to this decision? Because at one point it was a 6-1 no. So how do we arrive at 5-2 here 20 months later?
Yeah, I don't think this process was rushed. I think maybe going back to the first vote, that was rushed. We didn't have all the information that we have now. We didn't have an attorney that specialized in this area of law. And we had not yet even thought of forming the subcommittee going back, 2 years ago. So I think that would have been rushed. I think the process that we've gone through, the steps that we've taken with the subcommittee, and we can get deeper into all this stuff, the fact that we have 3 independent planners, one that works for the city for the planning board, one that works for the developer, and now one that we hired in City Council. And, it's 3 independent reports. They all say it meets one of the 6 criteria. You only have to meet one to be able to go into rehabilitation. We have a lot more information than we've ever had, and it all speaks to the process that we've gone through and how the vote went down last week. It was a 5-2 vote, but really, if you look at the 2 people that didn't vote for it, I'm not going to speak for them, but certainly I paid attention in the last campaign season, and every one of the candidates said they were open to compromise. They were open to a different version of the hotel that was presented originally. And nothing has changed in that process. We didn't approve a hotel the other night. What we approved was taking the next step to be able to gather even more information, to start to talk to the developer about what would fit the character of the city and would be in the spirit of the subcommittee report. But ultimately, all we did was take a next step in the process. So I don't feel it was rushed. I feel that we all learned a lot through the process. We engaged with professionals. We listened to the professionals, and this is where we are at this time.
So, Terry, to me, that's a really major and key point to this is that, okay, so the city's planner, Randy Schul, did a report, and the property owner hired a planner to do a report. And you could even, for argument's sake, you could discount that planners, not to disparage that professional, but you could discount that just because it was hired by the property owner who's looking for the designation. But the fact that council hired an independent planner, and that report indicated that the property meets the criteria. There's no professionals in this field that sit on city council, so that planner was very important to me personally.
Yeah, and I wouldn't discount Tiffany Morrissey's report just because she works for a developer. I mean, these are licensed professionals. They there's boundaries, right, that they have to play and in between and be able to justify everything because we're in such a litigious world. So they're aware of it. She's very talented.
I agree, and I meant no disrespect to her. I'm just for conversation's sake or for argument's sake. You had three. You had three independent planners.
Three independent planners, and then most importantly, back in probably December or January, we engaged with an attorney that has 30 years experience, much more experience than we do in rehabilitation and redevelopment. He handles this process all over Southern New Jersey for a number of different municipalities. So, we've leaned in on him as well to kind of walk us through the process and make sure we're interpreting the data the right way. So it's just been a combination of all that. But yeah, that's an important point for people to make. There was three planners, all independent. They all came to the same conclusion. So, and
as far as the attorney, Terry, again, not an Ocean City guy. He doesn't have an office in Ocean City, doesn't live in Ocean City. He's truly an independent whose expertise is in this field.
Yeah, that's his only job. I mean, he doesn't have any skin in the game. He doesn't really do business in Ocean City. He doesn't live in Ocean City. Whatever process we get to, he doesn't care. His job is to give us his professional opinion and advice, and to keep the legal guardrails, where they need to be, so that, ultimately, we don't take any of these votes lightly, but we don't want to open the city to, unnecessary litigation or, these frivolous lawsuits that can occur. So everything we're doing is being bound, within the guardrails of what our attorney is advising us to do.
Well, I know that threat has already been made, so I think it was prudent. And as a taxpayer, I appreciate you watching out for our tax dollars from a litigation standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, that's important to all of us. We don't want to kind of waste money. And there'll be opportunities, and I don't want to go too far down the road, but, as we go through the redevelopment process and there'll be asks for the city, and hopefully that gets balanced out where, everyone, it's kind of a win-win situation when we get to the end goal here from the city and then from whoever the developer is.
So, I'm sorry, what's the attorney's name, Terry?
John Ridgway.
I listened to him at the council meeting, and he said that it's a step in the process, and that now the city can develop a plan for the property. Do you have a vision for that? I mean, it seems that the sole focus of conversation is a hotel. And my opinion, I think based on the subcommittee's report, they included entertainment and retail. Is it fair to say that all 7 council people feel that way? That the entertainment and retail is an important aspect of this property?
I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think in a loose fashion, everyone ultimately wants what's best for Ocean City. This has been going on for 2 to 3 years. No one else has come forward and offered anything. I hear about a wave park and an amusement park and all this sort of thing. No one has come forward to do that. I've spoken to a number of the different other operators in Ocean City and Wildwood. I've actually spoken to people from Six Flags and Disney. No one thinks that it's a viable to go back to an amusement park. So we have a big piece of property that's unique to Ocean City, has great views, and we have a proposal from a person that wants to put a hotel there. I can get my head around that, but I don't think, that will be where the negotiations are critical in kind of the scope and the density and the setbacks and the combination of retail space with some form of entertainment. I'd like to see him, if we got there, have rides and that sort of thing. And we've seen versions of that does have that. But that'll be part of the process, and it's not going to be a fast process. It's going to be done tediously, in concurrence with our attorney's advice. And if we can negotiate something that we think will get to the spirit of Ocean City and what the subcommittee recommended, then at that time we'll be ready to move forward.
And not to get too into the weeds on that, but do you have a sense of kind of timeline from the city's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to not the next week's a reorganization meeting, so it's kind of ceremonial. It's not really a meeting where we dig into a lot of issues. But I'm going to speak to everyone on council. I'd like to, at our first real meeting, which is probably the middle of July, form a committee that can then go and start to engage with the developer in an official status to start to craft what the proposal would be eventually. Now, everyone I hear online, why don't they just get in a room and figure this out? Well, we can't get in a room, right? So there can only be 3 of us in a room. We can never have 4. We certainly can't have all 7 of us if it's not a publicly advertised space like we do for our meetings every 2 weeks. So there has to be a process followed here. We're going to follow the process. I'm not willing to get in trouble or do something that I'm not legally allowed to do to expedite anything. We're going to form a 3-person committee. They're going to engage with the developer, with the developer's attorney, and with our attorney, and we're going to start to see what we can craft. And I don't know how long that process will take, Drew. It's going to be a negotiation. Everyone knows the sayings, like if everyone leaves a negotiation dissatisfied, that was a good negotiation. So, we want a combination. We want a best-in-class product for Ocean City, but we're also going to be mindful, is it building the character or retaining the character of the boardwalk while also being respectful to the homeowners on the backside of the property. So, there's a lot of moving parts. The good thing is when you look at city council, and you're not going to agree with us all the time on every issue, but you have 7 people up there that are very independent. They've all been successful in different walks of life. They're all passionate about doing the right thing for Ocean City. So I think we have an appropriate mix to engage in this process and be very thoughtful and deliberate as we move through it.
So I would agree with you, Terry, 100%, knowing all of the council people. And sometimes when you have big issues like this, emotions play a part. And I think people in the community sometimes, or outside the community maybe, lose sight of that. The fact that, if you look at each individual council person, they are independent, and every one of them loves Ocean City and what's best for Ocean City. I 100% agree with you there. And the other point I wanted to make was when you said, what was the phrase you used, best in class use of that property. I think I don't know him personally, but based on his other products, both residential and commercial, he's best in class. I mean, everything I've ever seen him do is really first rate.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak to my, I didn't know Mr. Mita before a couple of years ago when he acquired Wonderland. I've had, a lot of conversations with him. I find him to be, a very straightforward, good person. I've got to meet, some of his family members here and there. And, I think that ultimately he wants what's best there. It's just everyone's so, I'm the same way, right? I grew up going to Wonderland. My wife grew up going to Wonderland. My kids went to Wonderland. So it's an emotional thing that to kind of let go of it. But, once you realize that we're not going back to Wonderland, what's the next best thing for the city? I mean, ultimately, we're a city that tourism, right? That's Ocean City and Cape May County's #1 industry. So I do like the notion of that. And I do think that, if we get to the point where we're going to have a different version of the hotel on that property, it will be best in class because, when you visit his other properties, I am, impressed when I walk in there. I mean, I've had a 30-year sales career. I've been all over the United States in different hotels for meetings and conferences and all that sort of thing. And, I would put, they're not as big as, a Grand Marriott resort type thing, but on scale and for what they cater to, it's certainly in Avalon and down south of Ocean City, it's a very nice product. I mean, I also look at, there's a division of his company that does home construction. And I'm impressed with the level of craftsmanship and the detail and that sort of thing. There's houses over by the church, Drew, on 2nd Street where they built, I think, 4 or 5 houses. I don't know exactly. And they're actually duplexes, but they did such a good job in the detail of them that it looks like a grand single family house. And, that level of detail is what I mean when I say best in class for Ocean City.
And that was what I was basing it on too. Some of the homes that I've been through, the Icona Avalon. I don't know Eustace Mita. He was on our podcast once. I met him once. So I don't know the guy, but I'm basing my opinion off of his existing product, and some of the homes he has built are pretty special.
Yeah, they are. They look nice and they blend in well with the community. So not that that's not what I'm basing my opinion on, but it's just something that you look at as you kind of build the whole story out. So
one of the other concerns that I've seen a lot out there is the precedent that is set by this vote. I believe it was Councilman Hartzell said, why this doesn't set a legal precedent. Is there any precedent set by you placing this property in need of or in designating it as in need of rehabilitation?
No, I don't think it presents a precedent. I mean, like I said, it's a unique property on that has some boardwalk frontage. There's certainly other areas, the Soleil lot, next to the Flanders. So I don't know. And one thing I do get when I hear Mr. Mita speak is that no one else would want to do this from a financial standpoint. And when you look at, or you have a conversation and they're talking about 8 or 9 years to potentially break even. I don't know who else would want to invest that amount of money for such a short season. And, what would be the financial driver of doing that? I don't think it sets a precedent. I don't think it's really financially prudent or the best use of your property to have a hotel that's only operational or at full capacity, right? They say full capacity is, talking to different markers, 70, 75, 80% of your available rooms. I just don't think it makes financial sense. And I don't know who would want to jump and follow that precedent if it was one.
And I think another thing that came out in the subcommittee that surprised me that would kind of negate that precedent is starting to add more residential on top of the stores. That's what they said. They said, hey, maybe we could look to add some of that setback residential like you see on top of like the Core Brothers on Moreland Terrace, mm-hmm. or the Golden Galleon or Shrivers even. Like, you don't even know that there's apartments up there, but there are. So as a property owner, why would you tear down your cash cow, if you will, when you can just build more cash cows on top of it? So
yeah, so remember, the subcommittee wasn't just tasked with 600 Boardwalk. We really wanted them to take a look at the whole Boardwalk holistically, not the whole Boardwalk, kind of the business area of the Boardwalk, right? Like mm-hmm. 6th to 14th or 15th Street, and kind of what were the possibilities there. So, I have spoken to the chairman of the planning board. If you look at our existing master plan from 2019, I believe, there are some recommendations around doing that sort of thing on the Boardwalk to make it more of a year-round community. But really the impetus for that is, when you look at the age and in some cases the condition of some of the stores on the Boardwalk from a business perspective, and that's what I am as a business guy, is how do I infuse money into the Boardwalk for not rehabilitation, for them to update their stores, to kind of bring stuff up to codes, to make sure that there's proper flood mitigation and that sort of thing. So that's something that I asked the subcommittee to look at. They have some good recommendations, and just like the 600 Boardwalk, that will be a process where we'll engage with a number of professionals to kind of see what our opportunities are up there. There certainly is always the issue of parking. So not everyone has enough or adequate parking. So it's not going to be applicable for everyone, but I personally don't see any downside to permitting some residential above the storefront so that, it lets the owner kind of have an infusion of cash to reinvest in their business and in their store.
And Tara, you said something very important. I think that adding residential on the Boardwalk is going to be pretty limited, because if you know anything about the Boardwalk, you know that parking behind the stores is very limited. The space behind the stores is very limited. So to add, a condo or two above a store that doesn't have any parking isn't going to happen. So that residential is going to be limited. I just want to make that clear, because, I don't want, people, there's going to be residential units on every storefront on the Boardwalk. It's going to look like Ocean City, Maryland. It's not going to happen. The parking behind the storefronts is super, super limited.
Yeah, you're right. And, from our perspective of city council, is you're just looking of always at opportunities on how to help tourism, help the economy, help the downtown. And it's just another piece of the puzzle. If you go back and look at, way before I got involved, Asbury Avenue, you weren't permitted when you did new construction to put a deck on your house. And, Drew, Dom, you have kids. How many parades have we been to on Halloween and Christmas and all that sort of thing, where every house you go past on Asbury that now has decks and has been redone, that's part of the fun of kind of living on Asbury Avenue in downtown. So we're just looking at ideas. Nothing's set in stone. But if you don't look to kind of the future and look to how we can help homeowners and the businesses in Ocean City, then you're not doing your job.
And I guess the other big concern is that with a large hotel comes alcohol. From my understanding, though, it's that the city laws trump all other laws. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, just to be clear, I think there was information floating out there. I'll call it a rumor floating out there that in New Jersey, anytime you have 100 rooms or more, you automatically get a liquor license. So that's what Tom's talking.
We made the decision a while ago that we weren't going to go down that road. We actually voted on it. So we're not going to start issuing liquor licenses. We're not changing our status as a dry town. I think that's part of the thing that makes us special. But that being said, I'm a member at the yacht club. I've been to numerous functions at the Flanders, weddings, and other sort of events. And when it's a private party, you are allowed to bring in alcohol and serve it to your guests. And I would view that if we did end up with a hotel that had some form of a wedding venue or, that type of space, they would be able to follow the same model that the yacht club does and that that Flanders does. So, we're not going to change any laws. We're not going to issue liquor licenses, but I would expect that they would follow the same model that's been successful for other places. And that'll be up to them. But we're not going to formally change anything or go down that road. So, that's the world we live in right now, Drew. And I don't know, when you're saying it's floating around out there, it's probably Facebook, right? So I'm surprised at how many people go on the internet and read a 15 or 30-second statement and take it as the gospel, and that's how they get their news. Because if that's how you're doing it, you're going to be really misinformed.
Totally agree, Terry. But to me, it's just like the mainstream media. It's just repeated and repeated and repeated. And there are people that if they hear it 3 times, it must be true, right? Mm-hmm. Here, another along those same lines. So as part of the rehabilitation designation, the developer could apply for a pilot program, which is, as I'm sure you know, payment in lieu of taxes, mm-hmm. which what you're hearing on Facebook is that he's going to get a 10 or 20 or even 30 year, depending on how active the Facebook user is, tax abatement. Now, when he being Mr. Meada was on our podcast, I asked him that, and he made the statement that he would be paying full taxes from day one. The city council, as part of this process, you have control of that?
Yes, we do. And, this is going back to, fake news and all that sort of thing. I probably several months ago, I don't remember when, gave a whole dissertation at a city council meeting that whatever happened, pilot was off the table. I don't know how much more clear I can be about that, other than to say that's not something. Pilot is beneficial when you're in Egg Harbor Township and Home Depot builds a store on one side and you want to get Lowe's to build a store on the other side. So you give them a big tax break for a number of years to incentivize them to come in to build their store. We're not in that ballpark. We're not trying to incentivize anyone to invest in Ocean City. And I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's a unique piece of property. If this developer can't get what he needs there, I'm sure there'll be other people, lined up to do that. But whoever ultimately ends up developing the property is not going to get a tax break. There's going to be demands on our infrastructure from a hotel. There's going to be demands on our police department, on our fire department, and all those services will be readily available to whoever the developer is, but they're going to pay for them just like Dom does and Drew does and Terry does.
Yeah, and you used a commercial example, but if you look at residential examples in areas that are where there's blocks of inner city blight and crime and drugs. A city wants to incentivize someone to come in and
Sounds like you just
revitalize
described the gardens, Drew.
Dom's a pretty funny guy, isn't he,
Yeah.
Tara?
He loves
Sounds
to
like
pick on. He loves to pick on the gardens.
You know,
Hey, man.
honestly, to pick a nearby area, I'm thinking of Gardner's Basin 20 years ago, whenever that area was redeveloped. That was a rough area, and
Quite nice
they
now.
did a beautiful job.
Yeah, it's a rough area, but I mean, to be clear, we're not going to go down the Pilot Avenue. I've said it, and other people on City Council have backed me up. But that being said, you know, when you talk about, I don't want to say blight or deterioration, all that sort of thing, but certainly, you know, when I go up on the boardwalk and I walk past what is the existing structure at 600 Boardwalk right now, and this, you know, is in the planner's report, there has been deterioration. I mean, you know, there's rust and all that sort of thing. So that's not going to be the reason we do it, but we can't just let that building, no matter what happens, just sit there and kind of collapse on itself over the years. It's been a couple years. I'm sure they're doing the required maintenance to keep it open, but they're not going to have any kind of infusion of, you know, fixing something and that you normally would have if you had an up and running business. So there is, you know, I do look at it and think, you know, we just can't let that sit there forever in that shape.
Well, getting back to the timing, it's really interesting that some people are saying that that you rushed putting this into area of need of rehabilitation, but the merchants and property owners on that end of the boardwalk criticize you for not acting fast enough. So you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. But it seems to me that 20 months and 3 planners, a subcommittee, et cetera, you took your time and did your due diligence to come to that point.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I don't think it was rushed. I think if it would have been done right away 20 or 24 months ago, I think that's rushed. But I think everyone's learned through the process. You know, I wish we had maybe engaged with the attorney earlier in the process, but, you know, none of us have ever done this before. So we've all had to kind of learn on the fly and kind of drink through a fire hose. And but I feel confident that, to go back and not to say the same thing over and over, when you have 3 planners that say the same thing and they're all independent, when you have an attorney that does this for a living, when you have all the data of the subcommittee, and remember who the subcommittee was, right? It was 9 people. None of them are in business together. They're not tied together. We had an architect on there. We had a builder. We have business owners. We had a really eclectic, talented, smart group of people that really spent countless hours kind of compiling that 85-page report. And like I said at the meeting the other night, whatever decision we make, the subcommittee report will be.
And Terry froze, but I can probably finish this statement because he said it before. The subcommittee report will be the guiding light for the decisions that are made by City Council.
And one of the subcommittee members, I can't recall who it was.
I bet
made
you
the
somebody
statement
called.
that the subcommittee did not specifically vote on whether or not to put 600 Boardwalk into the rehabilitation zone. But if they had taken a formal vote, it would have been 6-3 in favor of putting into the rehab zone.
Okay. Well, listen, I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth because the words that come out of my mouth get me in enough trouble. So,
yes, they do, Dom.
Yeah, hold on. Terry's trying to jump back in. Let's see if we can get back in. If he can't, you know, we've eclipsed our 30-minute window here. So,
yeah.
that's pretty interesting. Oh, he's back. You're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having internet issues. When the summer hits, this is how it gets in the North End.
Dom was talking smack about you when you left.
It was all pretty much about the gardens, to be honest with you. You know how it goes down there. The streets paved in gold, porta potties that smell like roses for miles. Literally, I'll never forget walking past that porta potty and being like, "It smells like lavender." Like, what is going on here? I'm not kidding, people. That's 100% true statement. 100% true. So,
all right, we're gonna wrap up. Tara, is there anything you'd like to finish up with?
Yeah, I would just say that, whether you've been on one side or the other of this whole process, I can speak for council and say that, everyone has been very diligent in listening to, all the different opinions out there. But at the end of the day, we're going to follow our professionals. We're going to come up with a best-in-class product that speaks to the future and the past of Ocean City. And we're not going to get there quickly. It's going to be a very fact-based. We've taken emotion out of it, right? We're dealing in facts, and we'll see where we can get. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to move as quickly as we can, but we're going to do it with kind of our due diligence.
I'm going to leave with this. If you're on Facebook, I don't care what side you're on. When I coached, I always told the kids that once you hit send, you can't take back what you said, and it's going out to the world. So I'm going to ask this community to think about what you're saying before you hit send, and just try to be kind and keep kindness as your guiding principle. It's gotten, we've crossed the line on this issue, and let's bring it back to what Ocean City is about, which is a wonderful place to live, a wonderful place to vacation. Let's just be a little kinder to each other moving forward, please.
Drew, it's like, I think you and I met through sports, and I was the president of the hockey association out in Egg Harbor Township. And, we had a code of conduct, and it said, before you could complain about anything, you had to wait 24 hours. And I really think, I've applied that in my personal life as well. And sometimes when you sleep on something, or you wait a day to respond or to comment on something, you have a little more time to think and ultimately do what you're saying is remember that you can't hit unsend. And at the end of the day, when people call me and they complain about, and that's my job, that's what I signed up for. Sometimes I say, is there a mirror in your house? And they say, yes. I say, go stand in front of the mirror and say, I own a house in Ocean City, New Jersey. And I can't tell you how many times people laugh and say, all right, I understand. At the end of the day, we're still going to fix the problem, but it's just your perspective on how you approach it is important.
Agreed.
Amen. Well, on that note, this has been the OCNJ Local, your podcast for everything happening here in America's greatest family resort. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks, Terry.
See you guys.
Thanks, Terry.